Imagine it's your first year of high school, or your first day of class. Last night, you spent the evening wondering what the next day would bring. How will you reinvent yourself? Who will you become this year? You may have stayed up watching YouTube videos, discussing tips and tricks on how to have a good year, and now you feel ready to take on the world. Now, imagine walking into lunch. You're paralyzed by the decision of which table to sit at. Do you choose the corner seat with your friends from science class? Or perhaps you should sit with your friends from theater, maybe even from band. Or you could pick the table with your friends from the soccer team. You might find yourself relating to various groups of people with various different backgrounds and different interests, but you might not feel quite at home within any particular clique. Now, imagine if that choice for the rest of the year was determined by another person. Let's say that decision will be based solely upon your appearance, your skin tone, or maybe even your gender expression that day. Where do you think you would be? Identity at times can feel like a buffet of personality traits, a list of characteristics to choose from, to put on a plate, and to give to others. It often forces one to consider which of these identities is truly your authentic self. Am I the person you perceive me to be, or am I the person of whom I choose to express myself as? Or, as sociologist Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois would put it, why did God make me an outcast and a stranger in mine own house? Du Bois even provided a useful term for this tug of war between identity and the perception of your identity. He calls it the double consciousness. Dr. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois was an African-American civil rights philosopher. His writing encompassed many topics, primarily sociology, history, racial justice, and even equality. In 1903, one of his most popular works, The Souls of Black Folk, is still considered a cornerstone in African-American literature to this day. In this text, Dr. Du Bois summarizes the experience of being black in a, so to speak, post-Jim Crow era. As he writes, the history of the American Negro is the history of this strife, this longing to attain self-conscious manhood, to merge his double self into a better and truer self. This desire to have some sort of ownership in terms of how you are perceived is just as relevant now as it was in Du Bois' time. In the digital age, many of us greatly fear being perceived. You may have seen TikToks or memes which reference that aversion to perception that we all experience daily. Some of us may use private stories, some of us use close friends, and some of us just choose to disengage from the platforms altogether to avoid being seen. With the rising prevalence of social media, these platforms allow for other users to voice their opinions, share their whereabouts, and instantaneously engage with popular mainstream media at the push of a button. Whether live on Twitch or perceived through highlighted clips on YouTube, the arrival of the ability to express ourselves online forces us to ask a seemingly simple question. Who am I really? Am I the person that you see as you tap through the stories? Or, in a more relevant fashion, am I more than who you perceive me to be?
Now, despite the identity crisis that can emerge from using social media, one of its irrefutable benefits is in democratizing access to learning about new concepts, such as double consciousness. That's why I'd like to introduce the sponsor of this video, Imprint. With Imprint, knowledge from the world's greatest thinkers are visualized and presented in clear and exciting ways. Imprint is time efficient and easy to integrate into daily routines, as big concepts can be mastered in as little as 2 minutes per session, which makes it fun to learn more instead of spending that time scrolling on social media. You can learn about fields of study like philosophy and psychology, while also getting better at taking care of yourself and others through learning about health and wellness. It's no surprise it was Google's App of the Year, as millions use it to learn for its incredible content and info. One course I've been really enjoying is Imprint's course on essential philosophy, theories, and thinkers, which has really helped fill in the knowledge gaps I've had, especially in the domain of ancient philosophy. To try everything Imprint has to offer for free, you can sign up for a full 7 days using the code on the screen and the link in the description. And as fans of the channel, you can get a 20% off discount for the Imprint annual premium subscription.
While I am sure Du Bois would be shocked to see the progression society has made by and large in this area of communication and perception, I do believe he provides more than relevant experiences and solutions drawing from the Black experience in his text. It is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others. Dr. Du Bois references the clash of identities which an African American, for example, may experience. The double life every American must live, as a Negro and as an American. From this must arise a painful self-consciousness, an almost morbid sense of a personality, and a moral hesitancy which is fatal to self-confidence. But this struggle in acting as one's authentic self is not limited to the African American experience. Rather, it is something that many of us can relate to. He goes on to say, the worlds within and without the veil of color are changing, and changing rapidly, but not at the same rate, not in the same way, and this must produce a peculiar wrenching of the soul, a peculiar sense of doubt and bewilderment. Perhaps Du Bois would be shocked to see the technological advancements we've made as a society, but he would not be surprised to see social media's psychological impact on identity and self-expression. The dichotomy between perception and reality has been written about many times since, by several other philosophers and many other scholars, but John P. Pittman, in his work Double Consciousness, alludes to this double consciousness as a sensation, a consciousness of oneself, but which falls short of a unified, true self-consciousness. It is part of a more complex feeling of two-ness, of disparate and competing thoughts, strivings, and ideals. This is not an episodic or occasional sensation, but a persistent form of consciousness. Pittman's words suggest that double consciousness, while a persistent feeling, does not have to be a natural state of being. Maybe identity lies outside of who we are, influenced by something outside of one's control. But that does not mean it should be entirely determined through others' perceptions of us. In the latter half of this book, Dr. Du Bois says the following: such a double life with double thoughts, double duties, and double social classes must give rise to double words and double ideals, and tempt the mind to pretense or to revolt, to hypocrisy or to radicalism. Every day, we are given an opportunity to choose who we are and which actions, ideas, or identities we want to uphold. If you have the privilege to choose, why not choose authenticity? Choose to support others who may not have had such a privilege to alleviate any such dysphoria which may be deemed as wrong or polarizing to society. Du Bois presents us with a diagnosis and an answer to combat this paralyzing duality that we may feel. Yes, we may live in an ever-expanding, ever-changing world, but that does not mean we should allow this world to define us. Perhaps the most radical thing one can do is authentically be themselves, to authentically define oneself.